It's just so to know that is not there's no relation.
None?
No, no relation.
Hmm.
Um, Laurel Colpier, good night.
L'Ariel.
Um, L'Oreal Colpier, good night. IG has been very glitchy lately. Seriously. Wow. I hope it doesn't glitch tonight.
Who said that?
L'Oreal.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I hope
That's
it doesn't
okay though.
glitch tonight, you know. So, but
That
welcome
is
everybody. And
okay.
as Jared said, we're going to be talking about um, process within your business.
Woohoo! So, Zoe,
Links and Love, Lyndon and Sharon.
thank you so much. Woo, Shaquille,
Crystal
Crystal, good
Williams.
night. Yes, Crystal came in just in time to hear the greeting. So, Lyndon, take it away, my friend.
All right. So good night,
Because
every.
I like the topic. It's very important now, especially given the great 7 months that we have experienced for everybody in sales. Once you've gone through the 7 months, I think you should listen to this tonight.
Yeah. So good night, everybody, and welcome for, of course, to another episode, another live from us. Today we're going to be talking about process. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you are a sales professional, if you're managing an organization from a sales leadership standpoint, we really want to make sure that you guys pay attention to this. So let's kind of put the framework in it, right? So over the last 7 months, Jared and I would have been working with a number of organizations independently and collectively. And one of the things that we have actually recognized is that what's missing from within organizations, based upon some of the questions that we ask, is a well defined process, right? So I'll say
Mm-hmm.
that again. What's missing from within organizations is a well defined process, one that goes from marketing into sales, into service, and back. Now, the question is, why is that happening? So JB, from your end, like how many of the organizations, when you're talking to them, what are some of the things that, like, is it that they've never paid attention to process before, or they just they've been kind of running on a hamster wheel consistently over and over? What are some of the things that you've seen as it relates to folks and their processes?
Yeah. So good night, and folks, good night to everybody. If you're watching, of course, just tell us where you're from, hail us out, so we can just shout you all out. We love the support. So here's the first interesting point I'll tell you. Some people hear us talk about this, Lyndon, and think and assume that we are talking about like only companies in Trinidad. But I've
Mm-hmm.
spoken to so many sales trainers out there in the US. And what is interesting is that this is across the board with so
Of
many
course,
companies. So many
that's correct.
companies do not have systems in place. They are literally just running on a hamster wheel, or they're just running because of they know the motions. There's no process in place. And here's the
Right.
danger when you don't have a process in place. It's that you don't understand what works, and then you cannot be proactive with regards to the activities that you create. When you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a system in place, you're honestly just reactive to what the customer wants, not understanding where the customer is at, what exactly that the customer needs, and more importantly, you can't improve on yourself and you can't improve on the products or the services that you're providing.
Right.
So having this process is key. And I would tell you honestly, there's some companies I've been to where you literally are like, how are you guys still open? That
Mm.
is honestly for if you're a consultant like us. I mean, I'm seeing Allison here. Allison, good night. Based on you being a VA, Allison, and I think some of the accountants out here could tell us, I am sure you have come across somebody's business, and after going through it, you're like, how is this still open?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and
And
that's the thing. And then there's some companies who have a good system in place, which is great because it makes it easier to work with. But
that's correct. Yeah.
yeah.
So you're very correct. You said something there that is very similar to the things that I've actually experienced, right? And that is companies have become so accustomed to, it's like plug and play for them now. You start the car in the morning and you just know that this is what you have to do, right? But you don't know as to how well that's working for you, and also how much it's actually affecting you, right? So you just kind of moving with the flow. You bring somebody in or you bring a team in, and that team, you know that team is your sales team, so you're supposed to sell. You have a service team, you know that team is supposed to be a service team, so they're supposed to provide service. And this is across the board in all industries, all right? So process. So when we're talking about process here, I want you all to kind of open up your minds, because we're not going to just try to talk about from the sales end, but we're going to also talk about how these things are actually impacting your sales, right? So
Yeah.
here's one of the first things as to why it's so important that we have some kind of process, and as to why it's important that we have your process written down somewhere or mapped out somewhere, right? What are the keys?
Pause. Just now, Linda, just now.
Go ahead.
Can we just agree that it's 2021? Please don't have your process written down. There should be on a digital document somewhere. There are tons of tools that do process mapping for you, like Lucid Chart. Microsoft has a bunch of tools. Please don't have it done on paper. That's just me. That's just my bias, right?
No, I listen, I agree with you, but I know some people still have it written down, or you know where it is? Up here, that nobody else could accept because it's up in their head, right? And then when you ask them to start, the eyes start looking up. I don't know if they're trying to see the process up inside their head, but the eyes start looking up, right? But the main point is you need to have your process mapped out somewhere. Whether you want to have it down on paper. I actually have a sketch pad from a couple years ago where I was actually writing down a process, right, in a particular way, right? But process, guys, helps create predictability. And this is for, let's start from on the sales end, because we know that if we talk in sales, we are supposed to do a number of things throughout that sales process. So we know that, okay, well, part of that sales process is on the lead generation side. And then, of course, we know that we have to have that meeting with the customer. But in many instances, when we talk or when I have conversations with clients, people talk it out. But even in their process, they're still not sure about their process. You know why? Because it's not written down anywhere. We can't pull up a PDF or pull up a Lucid chart mapped out in any particular way that we could talk about. So when we go in here, you have gray areas, because sometimes we might reach to the end of a process and they say, oh, wait, no. What happens here is that we talk to operations. Those things are bad best practices when it comes to sales. And for us as entrepreneurs, it's bad best practices when it comes to our business. We need to have our processes mapped out within there. Here's another part of the process.
Let me highlight this quickly. Alison, who's a VA, she said just today I got a call from someone who needs to take a document to the bank, but there's no process in terms of bookkeeping.
The bookkeeping. Yep.
Listen, and some people might be shocked, but I'm telling you, I remember there's one of the sales trainers I follow. He said he spoke to a $60 million company whose CRM is Post-its.
Post-its.
Post-its. That's how you had to get the information to do the CRM. It was on Post-its.
Right.
These are the things that are happening, folks. It is real. So don't feel bad.
So don't feel bad.
Just understand, if you don't have it in place, that is okay. But I highly recommend you get it in place. And I remember a lot of the accountants, I think Andrea would have also mentioned this as many times in London. Hey, Siobhan, good night. Madawada, Cellular Planet, Fashion Mode, good night. They would have said it where if you want to expand your business and they're trying to get loans from the bank and they're trying to get investors involved, for a business standpoint, you need to have a process.
You need to have a process. Yeah. You need to have a process, because So here's the other thing with that too, right? So that what you just said there ties into the next point I was going to make. So guys, our process identifies gaps, right, within our business. Now it is two things. We don't just want to speak on the negative, right? But your process will let you know what's working well at what stage, and also know what's not working well at that particular stage. And here's the important part about it. Now, this is if you're really serious about understanding your business. If you recognize that something is working well in your process, how do you maximize on that particular thing that's working well? How do you now ask further questions as to, wait a minute, so when I reach this particular stage and I'm doing this with the customer, right, I seem to convert a lot more to this stage. It may not mean you're closing the deal, but you may be doing really good at bringing the customers in and then bringing them into a demo phase. That is a process. So something that you are doing there, that series of questions that you are asking, identifying the customer needs, and then bringing them into that demo phase. Now, let's look at it from a different standpoint now. Let's say you've gone through the process of doing the demo and everything else, and you submit the quotation, but you have a lot of things that when it goes to the quotation phase, it just stalls. That is you understanding your process, because you're realizing that, wait a minute, I have a $20,000 in quotations, let's say 10 quotations, 20K in value, but it's just here, it's stalled.
And you have no idea why,
and you
or
have no
where,
idea
or
why.
who, or
So
nothing.
what am I doing, right? So what is happening at this stage of the process? Because it seems as though I could do everything else good, but when I reach here, at this stage of the process, everything just kind of slows down. It goes to a grind, right? Now that could be a number of different things. From a sales standpoint, it means that maybe you're not getting a customer to commit to the other phase. You're not maybe setting up a follow-up review. You're not maybe asking the right questions to make sure that you really should be quoting the customer, because sometimes we waste time quoting when we're not supposed to quote. And if you're doing a demo with a customer, if you're having a discovery call with a customer, your discovery call should identify whether this is a good fit or not a good fit. And you're supposed to be able to tell the customer that by the end of the call. So you know what? I don't think that we need to send a proposal to you, but there's some documentation there. So you don't waste time doing a proposal, because not every customer requires a proposal.
Exactly.
But you have to understand your process, because your process is going to bring that level of clarity to you, right?
Right.
You want to add something there before going to the other point with the process?
No. Let me just bring it back, because I know I see a couple more persons join. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, Lyndon and I tonight are talking about the processes and the metrics involved with regards to sales, because and as you said it at the start, there are many companies, individuals, entrepreneurs who have their business and there's no process involved. So you're literally just, as they say, running on a hamster wheel. And as he said there with his last point, having a process helps you identify your gaps. It helps you identify where you probably are doing great and then we're probably doing bad and you need to improve so that you can be a better business person.
Yeah.
And we're telling persons don't feel bad, because I talk to sales trainers in the US and other places, and there are many companies, we've seen it locally, we've seen it abroad, who do not have processes in place. So hopefully, I know the end of this discussion is just going to encourage everybody to literally just say, okay, let me just figure out what my process is. So you go with your point there, Lyndon.
All right. So the other part with that too now, guys. So once we identify where the gaps are, where the wins are, where the losses are, again, remember, if we keeping it on a business standpoint, remember, if you're talking gaps, it's either revenue loss or revenue churn or revenue gain. Because if the process is working well, then it's bringing you closer to earning that revenue. And if it's not working well, it's taking you away from earning that revenue, right? So
good point.
In either standpoint now, you get to pay attention to things like accountability. So who's accountable for either the good that's happening or the bad that's happening? Or what is, so let me leave it as accountability, because more than likely, if you're an entrepreneur, it's something that you are doing wrong, or something that your partner might be doing wrong, something that your sales rep might be doing wrong, something that your marketing team might be doing wrong, or if you want to flip that, something that they may be doing well. So understanding the accountability factor is extremely important when it is that we are talking process, because again, if you don't know where it is and who's responsible for what, then you can't fix it. So here's the thing with the accountability side of it now, right? That accountability side of it allows you to understand skill sets, gaps, tech, and that those gaps could be in skills, it could be in technology, it could just be in a matter of who you're connected to from who you're not connected to. So again, from you just taking the time to pinpoint, okay, how many opportunities did I have? What did I win? What did I lose? Why did I win them, or why did I actually lose them? Excuse me. You are now taking a deep dive into your business, right? And if you get the ability to kind of fine tune from there, so when you reach that accountability standpoint, you will know what you need to do, or you will know what you need to do with other people that's part of your organization as it relates to getting them to where they need to be, or helping them improve. So again, if they're doing really, really well, how can you now make this person a lot more efficient? Because sometimes you can now add a few more things to that individual or to that part of your process, and you tend to find that you have turnover a lot faster. So you're increasing your level of efficiency as it relates to that particular phase of the process. Any additional point before I jump in? How are we going so far?
I find we're going good so far. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're liking it, I mean, if you're seeing this tying into your business, give us some hats or put some because I see Jared is asking there, tell us how you do how you map your sales process, right? So
And of
while
course,
we
let us know about the audio. There's always an echo on IG. Like
right,
LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere else is good. But just
right,
let us know if you're watching us on IG, is the audio good? Because we always have this weird echo. I could never figure it out.
right.
And it's always coming from my end.
Now, well, today we clean and again, nothing at all.
Yeah.
So the person say, so Pauline is saying good on Facebook. All right.
Nice.
So let's talk about one important best practice here, right? So we're going to flip it
Yes.
up a little bit, right? While
Now,
looking at,
that's
go
how
ahead.
I now think about it. How do I? Okay, so if I'm and let's put it for everybody who's watching. If I'm an entrepreneur, how do I develop my process? What it is I need to do? I think that's an important question for people. How do I
Right.
go about creating my process? Is it that I just what do you recommend? Is it that I just write it down?
Yes, you
Is
start
it
by
as
writing it
easy
down.
as that?
Yes,
But then
you start by
let me
writing it down.
let me ask all the dumb questions, and so then what do I have to write down then? That I think
Right.
that's the question people understand. What do I have to write down?
Right. So let's kind of work it backwards, right? So whatever your goal is, right? And as we also sometimes we have to work it backwards because sometimes the easiest way to identify what is it that you need to start with. So whatever your goal is, you need to understand what will be the steps required to get to that particular point. So based upon what is that you need to service your customer, you would now know that you need to have X, Y, and Z in place, right? It could be the whole alphabet for you, or it could just be a few letters. But it starts with you understanding, okay, I want to be able to do this for the customer, but I need to have, I need to have my partnership with Jared in order because Jared facilitates part of my value chain offering to the customer. So that's one. So I need to know that I need to have that communication with you to let you know when something is happening. So suppose sometimes I'm dropping the ball and I'm not communicating with you on time, and you might say, "Boy, no horse, I can't do anything now because I booked up because I didn't communicate with you." So what is hampering me from communicating with you on time?
So write it out, and then when you look at each stage, ask yourself who's responsible, who else helps me complete the stage.
Yes, that's
Love
correct.
It. Okay,
yeah?
Cool. What else is involved?
The other part that's actually involved, and this can sometimes be the head scratcher for most people, because we're not accustomed to paying attention to process like this, is understand what does it take for the customer to do business with you.
Ooh.
Because we can look at process one way to say, these are the things that I need to do to deliver to the customer. But how easy is it for the customer to do business with us? Okay, normal thing like we'd always see on social media. What's the price? How do I go about paying? Always a headache,
the friction.
right?
So let's just get this clear so everybody can understand, right? Let me know if I'm sticking. I think I've seen it sticking on LinkedIn side.
So far, you're smooth on my end.
So let's examine this clearly, folks. Not only do you need to create your sales process, but you also need to create the buyer and the customer. And I think Samantha DeBoma, that's Exco, would explain it properly. That's your customer journey. What process does the customer take from, as Lyndon said, being aware, interested, desirable of your product, and how are you getting that? Is it attention? No. What's the last name? Action to buy. What process is that customer going through? And if you have that down pack, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, so pay attention. And this is where I always say, put yourself, at the end of the day, even though we're entrepreneurs or sales professionals, at the end of the day, we are consumers. And we've all had scenarios where there would have been some customer process or there would have been some service process that we felt was a headache, right? So if you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer for your own business, so again, you're taking yourself out from being the provider and now say, okay, I am a customer and I am coming to purchase from myself. These are the things that what happens when the customer reaches out to me, right? Or how often how quickly am I able to respond to the customer? Where's the customer reaching out to me from? Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's an email, all those things make up your process. What is the customer seeing? Based upon what is the customer seeing initially to be able to go through that process of awareness and actually interest, right? And then when it is that they do reach out, what are my mechanisms? Do I have any level of automation in place? Do I always have to be on call to say what I, to say that I have to respond on time, right? When we do engage and I'm actually doing the demo, how again, if the customer shows some level of hesitation, what is my sales process as it relates to identifying all of their needs? Like, why is it that, as a matter of fact, this morning I had a conversation with a client, and my question to her was, what is it they think you need CRM? What is it that you're looking for now from a CRM? Because I don't just want to jump into it to say, well, yeah, CRM this and CRM that. No. What is it that you're looking for from a CRM? What is it that you've tried before? What worked? Because I am qualifying the customer, and qualification is part of my sales process. And part of my sales process is having a series of questions. This is important. So, as much as we're talking about writing it down, part of your process is having a series of questions for you to identify if this customer is a good customer. Excuse me, if the customer scope might be a little bit broader than yours, so you may have to bring somebody in. You never know, right? Because you may even have to advise the customer that now may not be a good time for you all to work together. I always like to give this story, JB. I would have shared it with you before, where I reached out to Michael Zaporinsky because he had this thing out where he was willing to work with consultants.
Right.
And Michael had you fill out a list of things in a thing. So he was pre-qualifying you online. And I got back a PDF, dude. I didn't I didn't get to work with Michael, but in his PDF, in his response as an email, he said, "Hey, Lyndon, just checked out your stuff. It doesn't seem as though you may be a good fit to work right now." And that could be a number of things, right? Maybe I wasn't making the kind of revenue, because that was a question he was asking. Maybe I wasn't making the kind of revenue to fit his price point, right? So I am not there as yet. However, what he did, he gave me some resource material to work with. And what he's been
So
doing,
it's a nice way to turn them down.
exactly. So how do you now build that into your process? You understand? Because again, you don't have to work with everybody. You want to understand who are your best fit customers, right? And even though I got quote unquote turned down, what is your process? Because that person is now that person has shown an interest, right? Towards working with you. You never know. Linda Braffett might just reach to that point where I am a good fit customer for Michael, right? And it may take me 5 years. And one day now, what happens is when we do go through that process again, boom. But the thing is, he is nurturing me between now and that time. It's also part of the process. And that comes through your marketing side of things, because your email marketing and the podcast and everything else. So again, so there's so many different elements to process by JB and everybody that's paying attention, that you can't just look at it from, we can't just talk about delivering to the customer. You know, well, it has to be the nurturing. If the customer is interested, if the customer is not interested, if the customer is interested but not ready at this time, then what is your process towards supporting that whole thing? And that's why I think it's even more important to pay attention to the customer's journey and match your sales process alongside the customer's process. And if it is that you could match the two, then I think that you will be in line with wherever the customer is. And one big thing that salespeople do is what? We sell too fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, we sell way too fast. We sometimes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say sometimes we get into a particular phase of the conversation that we have no business talking about. We start talking about all the fancy stuff. The customer not ready to buy.
No, because you said it right earlier, and I mean, and I know for good night for everybody who's watching. As I say, we're just talking about the importance of having a process in terms of your business and what processes you have in place, instead of just running around like a hamster wheel from here to there, helter skelter.
Yeah.
And I think your point there is really valid, because you see, when I look at what is needed in terms of your business, you always want to just make sure that you have that kind of predictability involved, and you're able just to me, I just like, you never look at it until you actually write it down. And then the key point that you're talking about there now is that because I understand what process is involved, I could be, as I said, it creates predictability, and then I can actually think about how many things automated can I put in place to bring the customer to the point where I am ready to talk to them, and I don't have to waste time. And you might not think it's important, but let's look at the simple thing Lyndon mentioned before. Think about your buying process online, unlike on social media, and you see it all the time. Somebody sees a product, they like it. Then after DM you for price, That's friction. Why can't you have
Yes.
the price here? Then also, why
Yes.
can't you say link in bio to buy, and then the link in bio just carries me to swipe my card because I like and I
Yes.
see it and I want it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how quick people want to buy, and that's why you need to have the process. Like these things should be mapped out, and every time you come and create something new for your business, it kind of follows the same template, and
Yeah.
therefore you get to understand what works, what doesn't work, etc. But
Yeah.
I know we don't want to focus too much. I know we want to talk about the processes, but we also want to talk about like the metrics. So like, what do you think of some of the metrics once you have these things in place that are
Mm.
important? Because to me, I automatically think sales.
Yes.
And before we switch into metrics, let us know IG, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. Do you have any questions based on the processes? Is there anything that Lyndon is dropping here tonight? You're not sure because like Alison is saying map it from start to finish. Paul is saying she never looked at it as in depth from that angle. But trust me, it should be a point where if somebody asks you what's the process for your business, they can actually map it out.
Yeah.
Or it's already there. You can actually show them. So pause a little 30 seconds just in case you all have any questions you want to drop for us in the chat. But good night, everybody. Guys, so Cellular Planet, Jomo, Sim Events, 246868. How y'all doing?
So if you don't mind, let me as I say, we wanted to give one example. Let me give one example, a most recent example. You may have seen it online. You may have seen me talk about it online last week. So we have 3 departments within an organization, and what we're doing for them is implementing the CRM, right? Now, most people might just think that implementing the CRM is just a matter of, okay, well, do this, this, and this, and you set it up in HubSpot and everybody happy. But it's not that, right?
Yeah.
When we were going through the process, here's the questions that I asked. I noticed that you have some customers here who are up for renewal. What happens there? They gave me an idea as to what the process is. What happens when the customer doesn't renew? They gave me an idea as to what happens when that is. And who's responsible for when the customer doesn't renew? There was no response for that.
Ooh.
You understand? So again, it's just taking the time to pay attention to the different steps, right?
Ooh. And actually, let's look at this on a big scale because I like you brought up the renewal factor. I always remember, AS Noel, good night, Camila, good night. I always remember when Digicel came on, Digicel Play came on the scene. Of course, on the side of Flow, there are a lot of people who return in their boxes to switch and upgrade. And I remember going in to drop off my own, and the first thing I thought was, and I noticed was that people were just allowed to return. There was no process to stop people from returning or to try and win back their accounts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if there was a process, I'm not saying you would have won every case. I don't even saying you would win 50%, but at least you won back a percentage. You don't lose 100% of that revenue
Exactly.
for everybody who works in.
Dude, if I get
a renewal.
If I get 13% of that business, I'm happy. You understand?
Better than none.
It's better than none, you know.
I was in a long line and I saw not a single, and I you know me, I'm watching the conversation.
Yes.
I'm just watching everybody saying, "Oh, you bought this back? Thank you." All right, have a good day.
Yeah,
you never heard the person say, "Start to leave. Is there anything we can do?" Nothing.
Yeah, and then that in itself is that, again, all those are things to do at that stage of your process, because again, remember, we're balancing it off with corporations and of course the entrepreneurs, right? Correct. So I'm going to answer that question about the metrics, and just to kind of wrap up the example I was given is that the goal was we had to now map a process again. So we went and we mapped it out. We had to map a process that now took that customer who was undecided or terminated or declined the renewal, and we put them back into sales, because before nothing was going back to sales, because it's no longer that team's KPI anymore. It's now in the hands of sales. And now, so once you send that back in a cycle, then you're good to go. You understand? Now, KPIs would always your KPIs. The one thing about a KPI is conversion at each stage of your process, right? And your KPI could be, so let's talk about, let's say for instance, the qualification.
Right.
If it is that we have your KPI will be, okay, so how are these series of questions, whether it is that we pre-qualifying the customer online, or we pre-qualifying the customer in person, or we pre-qualifying the customer to send them off to a pre-sales team to do a demo. We want to make sure that we have the highest quality or the highest value KPIs, right? If it is that we have your KPI will be, okay, so how are these series of questions, whether it is that we pre-qualifying the customer online, or we pre-qualifying the customer in person, or we pre-qualifying the customer in person, we want to make sure that we have the highest quality or the highest value customer there. So KPI will be, did we waste time with that? How many demos are we wasting time on, or how many demos did we not have a good fit? So the pre-qualification is supposed to make sure that we are passing the customers with the highest score across
Right.
to the demo team, and then we're filtering out exactly what Michael did with me. So you filter out those who don't hit a good score, and there's nothing wrong with keeping a score for customers, right? So based upon the questions that the customers answer, you can have a score for them. If they score 100, well, of course, they move on. If they score 50, then you might need to do something else with that customer or recommend something else.
And that there, as you said, is technically of where you map out your ICP, because
Yes, correct.
you know through your ideal client profile, the ideal customer, which everybody should have an idea of. You know what makes it a criteria, because it's almost like, and I always give this example, it's almost like if you sell Mercedes-Benz, your qualifying criteria is going to be what the budget is.
That's
And
correct.
if that's not
Yeah.
your budget, you don't want to waste time meeting with the person. And
Mhm.
some of you might think that's a bad way to approach, but let's put it this way. Let's just assume you had 10 meetings for the day and 9 you spend time meeting with, justifying out they're not your ideal customer, they don't meet your budget. That means that your process that you're using to qualify them is faltered, because you're not actually introducing and talking about budget, so that you can actually qualify that individual to make sure that you're getting the right ones, and then you're blocking the wrong ones who are not there.
Yeah.
Like, we can't help everybody. Like,
Yeah,
keep that in mind.
Yeah, you're either blocking them or you're not attracting them.
Yeah.
Because if you get in more 9s, if 9 out of 10 is not a good fit, right? Or they're low quality, and listen, there's nothing wrong with saying those are low value prospects or low value leads. It's business, guys, right? There's nothing wrong with saying that. You don't mean anything negative to the customer, right? But you know that I am not maximizing my time with the right type of customers. And this is if you're picking up the phone to make a phone call to a customer. The same thing. Am I researching the customer the right way? Am I not seeing something on their website that doesn't make them a good fit? You understand? So whether
Am I not asking them the right question to determine? There are lots of things, but that qualifying now helps you, as I say, that KPI, and you tell me if I'm wrong on that, because that KPI now lets me understand that if once I start these persons at this lead phase with the questioning, it also shows, so one, I think the end result in terms of when the person closes to make sure I have the right customer, but I also could gauge it as a metric as have they moved on to the next stage, depending on what my product or service is. So
that's correct.
That's how you honestly need to look at it.
So look at it from a different part of your metrics, right? Because what you will find happening is that as customers move through the sales process, that's why I always say sometimes closing isn't hard unless once we start the right way, right? So if it is so now when it reaches that demo phase, now how is the demo team? I think we were talking about this with a client sometime last year. How is your demonstration team now asking the right questions to then pass them off to the team that's going to do the quotation, right? Because that demo team is also supposed to pick up things that the first team, the pre-sales team maybe didn't pick up initially, right? And then when you move that forward now, how is the customer now ready to say yes? Because what you're supposed to have is less churn, less customers falling off, less customers getting stuck at quotation phase. So once you realize that your close rate has gone up, and sometimes your close rate, your value of sales could go up, and you're not even doing a lot of sales because the quality of the customer is now higher. You understand? Or whatever it is that you're doing at the beginning from your marketing end, that process is bringing in such a good volume that you're hitting your sales numbers. But again, the main thing is that you're spending less time on low value prospects or low value leads because you've taken the time to sift out, the bad areas. You're taking the time to sift out the bad areas of your sales process, and you want to refine it. And as Jared made a really, really good point about 10 minutes ago, where he spoke about, if it is that I now understand that process so well, what can I do to automate that process? And here's what you get to do with that time, JB. We get to spend time in a different part of the process, refining it or adding more value to our customer there. You understand? So overall, just increasing everything.
And then and let me bring back and emphasize this point, right? If you really want to measure if it is that your processes and stuff are working, as Lyndon said, do you understand what your close rate is? And if you have your process mapped out, let's just say you don't have a process mapped out, just ask yourself a simple question, right? How many people do I speak to that are new, and how many of them actually convert and take the product or service that I'm buying? That's a simple equation to understand.
Yeah.
And if you realize that I'm talking to 100 and I'm only closing 3 people, nothing wrong with that. My question is, does the 3 meet your target? And then if they meet your target, why aren't you talking to more of those 3 persons?
Yeah.
That's a process you need to develop. And then if I look at that closing ratio, then that's a metric, because 3 out of 100 is poor. What am I doing that is not connecting those people down to the end? That's where you start to understand that where your process starts to falter.
Right.
All of those things come into play.
Right.
And then, of course, you get to implement different aspects. You get to study if I need to, probably, as to say, invest in a CRM, invest in a virtual assistant, or just be more proactive or have a better conversation. You get to understand what's missing. But if you don't have the process mapped out, if you're not taking a look at what's happening in your business on a regular basis, you're definitely going to miss out on those revenue opportunities. Because sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You finish with your point. Yeah.
No, the reason why I bring this up, because when I have conversations with clients and I start talking about closing ratios, and I always bring this up with regards to engagement. And like, for example, let's put it this way. You post content online, you post something online, and you know, say 50 people like it. And I always ask them, did you message those 50 people? Do you check to see if they qualify as an ideal customer? And I always get no answers. But then I ask them, on average, if you talk to 50 people, how many convert? And they don't even know that closing ratio. And then this is how I get them excited. I say, what if 10 of them close? What's your average transaction value? I was like, 10 times your average transaction value. That not getting excited to message these people and understand this process.
Do you know what's surprising with that too, JB? A lot of executives, not just entrepreneurs, right? Because I know that entrepreneurs may not be thinking about it like that. And that's fine. But we should start thinking about it like that. But a lot of executives, they can't answer those questions. So when you're asking, I may ask, well, so tell me, what is your forecast like, and what is your forecast probability on some of your opportunities? They don't know. You understand? But we want to close business every single month, but we can't. And right now, data is too valuable for us to treat it so willy-nilly. Data is gold.
I was a person could long ago used to sell on gut. Now I don't sell without data.
Yeah.
I don't sell without data. Full stop.
Yeah.
And then I let my gut make the decision. And I just want to bring up a point, Nissan. Shout out to Nissan. He mentioned something interesting, which he's talking about the process and the metrics, which he says it doesn't sound so different from when you're evaluating what stocks to invest in.
To invest in.
You're right.
Right. Yeah.
What is the stock's performance? What are the projections? And your weight are based on that. So yeah.
Right.
Celine is saying she's going to message the people who like
all
my
the people
posts now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's
the
engagement.
We'll talk about messaging next week, yeah? Because
I
met somebody, I was talking to a LinkedIn connection today, who said even though the person who messaged her was offering what she needed, the message was so horrible, she just
didn't take
the person immediately.
Well, definitely next week.
That's next week. So you talk about that aspect, but it involves your process. So yeah.
I want to just add one more thing here, right? And so we spoke about the process moving forward, right? So we spoke about the buyer having the need, and then we spoke about the sales, the organization having the understanding of the sales process. But what about the revenue retention process? What about that process after the sale? You understand? And that is also an area. Now we call it customer service, but we're not going to call it customer service now. We're talking about what is that nurturing process? What is that quote unquote customer success process to make sure that to gradually convert that customer into a long-standing customer? If it is that you are actually in insurance or whatever it is, and you want to now move up, or if you're in a credit union, or if it is that you're in a business where you can sell to other members within the family, right? But you have to start with somebody else, right? So you have to start with one person. What is your process to retain the customer and start working the business so you get your referrals, you get your consistent new business, all of those things. And of course you get customer to become an advocate, because here's another part of your process. How many of the customers that you recently sold to is converting for existing business or new business, or you're cross-selling or upselling. And if that is not happening, if customers are taking your quote-unquote one-time offer or your service one time, just once, but they're moving on, then there could be something there within the period that you're servicing them, that something within your process that is not good enough to keep them. And again, so that's revenue retention side. So that's post-sale, right? And now you're nurturing the customer to make sure that that customer either gives you some good referrals, they become an advocate or a sponsor for your business, so many other areas. So we're not just looking at it from the front end, we have to look at it from the back end now.
So if you have a recurring subscription service, ask yourself, or if you have clients on retainer, ask yourself, what value am I giving? And then I think, Lyndon, this is where we always talk about what automation have I put into my processes to make sure that I have that continuing. And again, this is where things like your CRM come into play.
Yeah.
If you do have a CRM, put it as a reminder on your phone, your calendar, something. Like something that I do is like immediately when I hear different things to clients, I like put it on in my calendar as a reminder. So like, and that's during the conversation. So I get like double reminders because it's also most likely my CRM. So, and shout out to Paula. Paula is saying messaging by weekend. Because, and Paula, we spoke about this last week and she executed on it, by the way. Yeah? So you can, if you're still here, Paula, just message and tell people about that impact. Paula runs a business and I told her, just message your connections. Just send them a message. And I told her exactly what the message is and he was getting responses. So that type of engagement wins.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, and there's a process too, right?
That's a process.
That's a process. That's an engagement process. That's part of your process and engagement. You know?
And then you know what's interesting? When you start doing it, it's gonna be so eye-opening for you to understand how one aspect of the process is broken down to so many different parts.
Yeah.
And then now what you start to understand now is that when you look at each part, you start to ask yourself, what is my measurement for success in this? What does success in this part of the sales process look like?
Yeah.
And when you start to understand that, you might think it's like a lot of work now, but it becomes automated. Like, think about it this way. Think about, and actually, tell me if I'm using.
What if you're going to say what I'm thinking? Go ahead. You might be saying.
If you say it, you can't say jinx at the same time. But I think we maybe cite you off. Think about it as a pilot. A pilot is going through a checklist of different things. It's a process. And once they understand that, yes, it's automated, but they still have the checklist to making sure they're going through everything to make sure it's right.
Right.
And that's what they use to measure their success.
Right.
Like, I may be wrong, but I don't think we jinxing each other tonight.
No. Here's what I was thinking based upon when we're talking about the process. Look at it from the standpoint of any sprinter. So Olympics just finished, right? When you're coming off the blocks, there's a process. You go through a particular formation change between your first 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way down to your 100 meters, right?
Right.
Those things. And if something happens that's off in the beginning, you could lose the entire race. The same thing happens for your customers. If something is not happening properly out the blocks, you might be stumbling. Customers like it, but you're stumbling at the beginning of your process. If you don't understand what that is, but that's why you need a coach. That's why you need that's why you need feedback. So ask the customer.
And that's why you need a plan. I can't remember the lady name, but she won. This is the lady in Olympics who fell in the 5,000 meter semi-final.
And she got up and run and beat everybody.
Listen, I remember when that heat happened, I was like, oh gosh, she gonna lose. So here's the difference with that. You know why she didn't lose? She had a process. She knew what, and the thing is, her mindset was set as, if this happens, I do this.
Yes.
So she fell down and she immediately went into turbo drive.
Yeah.
Because
she run down everybody.
You notice, and the thing is, look back at everybody who fell in the Olympics. Everybody who fell in the Olympics, the reason why they lost, they spent 2 to 3 seconds. Oh gosh, I fall long. Within a millisecond, she was back up running.
Yeah, she fell, she rolled, got up. She fell, rolled, got up and run. Yeah.
Run. And that to me is what made her difference and what made her win. And then you talk about the mentor. Added off camera, off this, you talk about the mentor, because I don't know if anybody saw her when she finished her last race, which was the 10,000. And because she ran, I think she ran the 15, the 5, and the 10, which is remarkable. Yeah. Because when she finished the 10, she literally broke down mentally because I think she was rubbing ice all over her body and thing. And it's like, that's a strong boost. But let me highlight Paula St. George. So she said, yes, customers feel as if you care and it allows you to take the conversation further, and then you may end up getting a sale and a referral. Why? Because you implemented a process into your business.
Yep.
That's just a small little aspect of a part of the process that she's in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
You guys may look at it as, oh no, Jared said to just message. No. Jared is giving you a process of when your customer engages with your content, or your customer becomes a follower, or a customer does whatever it is, or not even a customer. It might just be somebody that's coming, showing some interest and connecting with you. You message them, you start engaging with them, do those things, and that is a process towards building on your own awareness, building on the customer interest, so that at some point the customer is going to either, and here's the nice thing about it, right, guys? The customer may not be a customer that person may not be someone to buy from you now, however, or buy from you ever. However, because you've engaged them at that particular stage of your process, and they've built that liking or relationship with your brand, they can now refer you onto someone who is the best fit. That's the sweet part about really understanding your process, like like the back of your hand. Once you understand what that process is, you will know that in your mind you will say that, yes, I may capture a few people who are not my best fit, but because I intend to nurture them, they are not going to help me get to the right people, and that is so important as keeping it as part of your process.
Facts. And then let me just read out Nissan's comments here for everybody. Companies like Google and others measure SaaS sales, which is sales as a service, right?
Software as a service, sorry.
Software as a service. Why is I always think sales? Every time I say I think SaaS.
Because we into that.
Right? By usage rates and post usage rates, post sales as well. So as a salesperson, is not just signing for the SKUs, it's making sure the correct services are attached and get max utilization of the SKUs within 30 days, 90 days. Right up to renewal date and better renewal of all SKUs or buying more SKUs. And it's absolutely right, because if I'm not mistaken, this model is not only what Google utilizes, I think Microsoft utilizes this as well. So they look at what is the consumption rate. And that is a big thing, because and that actually increases your chances of renewal, because think about it. If you sell a subscription service and the person doesn't use it, they don't consume it,
you're not going to come back.
They're not going to come back. The probability of them utilizing it is going to be renewing is way down. So excellent point, Nissan.
And I'll just say that to Nissan, that is what we were taught when we were selling copiers. We didn't care what other copier was in the office. You could have had a Xerox or Ricoh, whatever it was. When we put our shop in, we want you to utilize, because utilization is important. Because when it comes time for consumable sales, when it comes time for paper sales, when it comes time for technical service, if they're not using it, there's no recurring revenue to come from any of those things. So we want to make sure that you utilize, and that's why sometimes onboarding customers the right way. Remember, I was talking about so this is a part of the process too, right? Onboarding customers the right way, identifying exactly as to what it is that they are making the purchase for, and showing them how to do that, and then some, is all part of your process, because you want to make sure that adoption is high, utilization is high, because you want to convert that customer to be your main user. Let them forget the other stuff. Forget using those other brands and use this brand. So excellent point there, Nissan.
Yeah, and if you're all enjoying the conversation, enjoying the comments and the contribution, everybody give us some heart, show us some love, because I mean, we appreciate everybody with their feedback, and we appreciate bringing these kind of things. And if you have any questions or topics that you'd like us to bring as well, let us know, because again, if it's one thing Lyndon and I love to do, is just talk sales and just bring that knowledge out to everybody. And I think more the experiences. So I would say, even if it is like you have a business and you're just trying to get ideas for it, let me do and jump on a live. We would just sit down and actually throw out ideas there for you to help you out, because that's one of the things we love doing. But I think if and as we wrap up the conversation and everything tonight, I think if you understand how important this process is, you would really understand, one, how much revenue you can make in the organization. You'll understand where to go to get the revenue. You'll understand how to be proactive about the revenue. You'll understand where to invest. And then the reason why you're doing these things is because you understand what are the KPIs, what are the metrics, what actually is the definition of success in each role and each process. And they have a sound understanding of it. And then what is even better as well is that eventually, as what we do with all businesses, we eventually it allows us to actually scale business a lot faster because the process is in place and we can hand it off to somebody or several people or franchise it. And that is something that's powerful. So you have to look at it that way, folks. Stefan Hassan is her name, London. Yeah, she's a boss.
Yeah, she's a boss. She's a
She's a
boss.
boss. She's a boss.
She's a
She's a
boss. That
boss.
mashed me up.
That's
I
a-
watched that and I said, what the hell?
Because
You know?
everybody else, nobody else, not a single soul, man, woman in the Olympics who fell won except Stefan Hassan.
Yeah.
And she comes second or third, you know. She went and
She come
win the race, you
first.
know.
Yeah.
Nah, she bad. That's dangerous on another level.
Yeah.
But again, she had her process. She knew what was her KPI. She knew her metrics. And you might think we're talking is sports, but yes, it's still sales.
Still sales, yeah.
Still sales. Right? So that's just it. I don't know if you have any questions and stuff as we kind of wrap up things for tonight.
No, I think you just summed it up there based upon what we were just saying. Pay attention to your process, guys. It might seem you might think that you're too small as from an entrepreneurial
Never
standpoint.
too small.
You're never too small. As a matter of fact, now is the best time to start thinking about that because as your business begins to grow, you will thank us later for encouraging you to focus on your processes. And even when it comes to making things a lot faster for yourself, and you'll understand so much more about your business and stuff like that. So pay attention
Look,
to
Nissan is
your
asking
process.
a great question. You should see how they sell gym memberships here, and he's in Australia, right? So
Mhm.
random question. How would you sell gym memberships better in Trinidad using what you know and knowing gyms aren't normally seen as brand and interchangeable?
That is interesting.
That's a damn good question.
I can't say I could answer that immediately, Nissan, because it's not something that I've actually paid attention to. But how do they sell gym memberships there? I mean, I'd love for you to enlighten us.
No, but I think in Trinidad some gyms are seen as brand, you know, because like for example, I know there's a gym in I can't remember the name. There's a gym in Shogunas. That's a 3-level gym.
Oh,
with like the running track.
That is
Then
I
there's
can't remember the
then
name,
there's
but I know what
Gold
you're
Gym.
talking about.
Then there's Gold Gym in Maraval.
But
Then
Gold is
there's
international.
but then there's a franchise. Then there's Fitness Center in C3, which has the which has the running track as well. And people go to those specifically because of the brand. So that's a good and I think people go there so they can be seen.
Yes.
And I don't think they alter. And some people drive into C3 and they live in far from it.
Yeah.
Just to get there. Some people living in the east and they heading on to Shogunas to exercise. So all those things play an important factor.
An important factor, yeah.
And then when we look at all these small entrepreneurs who started to build their massive brands, so like Fit Guru, some of the others who building out their brand, the brand plays a good aspect in terms of the membership because people like to be seen. And that's just a Trini thing. Right? So Alison said, thank you for the awesome live.
You're welcome, Alison.
You're welcome. Paula is saying some gyms focus on the programs that they have. I say yes, but they also, I think what drives the programs is the individual who's offering it. Because if they don't know who it is, nobody going to spin class by a random person. Or they going to know ab class by a random person. So they must have some kind of brand involved with the individual.
Yeah. I think the main thing... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I think the main thing so like when Nissan had brought up that point about the gyms, the one thing that I believe that I'm seeing, even though it's coming through home and some of these kind of home type, it's just really community. I don't know if that's how they sell it, but I'm seeing a lot more communities coming up. So if you look at the oh gosh, these guys on just off RP Avenue there. All right, that Stefan was involved in. I can't remember the name right now.
The CrossFit.
Right, the CrossFit guys, right? That's community, right? And I think it was kind of moving away from just the whole individual and you meet a few friends, but there's now a community. There's a goal. You're kind of booked into to achieving a particular thing. That's how I saw some gyms growing, but I'm not sure as to how other gyms outside were selling that. But I think communities is a big one.
Let me bring up this point. So their franchise is about 4 big ones. You buy membership and you can access any gym. They have classes added on, included for free. They give heavy discounts for longer term versus pay per month. And you know what the kicker is? For all 4 brands are owned by the same company. So they have found 4 different niches to target and gain revenue by each because different types of people align with different. Oh, that's brilliant.
Brands.
That doesn't exist in Trinidad.
Yeah.
That for sure doesn't exist in Trinidad because even though Fitness Center and all the others have their franchises, not their locations, it's essentially the same thing.
Mhm.
Nobody, I think, but yeah, nobody has that.
Yeah, that is different.
do exist.
That's a full program and not process but strategy in itself. So that's
Yeah.
real interesting.
That's brilliant, though.
Yeah. So just for the Instagram folks, what we're doing is that we're actually reading some feedback coming from Nissan Dukaran
Yeah.
on LinkedIn as it relates to process, brand, sales strategy, etc., etc. So,
Correct.
so yeah, so that's
Yeah.
what we're reading and discussing on this side. Yeah.
And good night to James. Say what sales. I saw the John Barrow sales.
Hey, James, how you doing, brother?
Right, Kim Hubert. Just saying excellent points.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yeah, she has so many mama friends, and she's never factored them into her process before. No, when you look at it and you realize what your process is like, and
Yeah.
if you don't get somebody to help you map it out, you're gonna be totally surprised at how many different things happen in the course of a person saying, "Who are you?" to buying from you.
They're buying from you. Yeah. Correct.
All right. So, thank you so much, folks. We appreciate you live tonight. Don't know if
Next
you have any
week-
additional questions. Yeah.
No, next week it's either a guest or next week we're going to be talking about, what is it they say we're going to be talking about, JB? Messaging?
Yeah.
All right. So either
I
a
want
guest
you
or
to
we're talking about
understand
messages.
messaging. Because I mean, Paul and a couple others could testify. Like when you want to hit somebody with a direct message, I think a lot of people miss that mark and they immediately jump into the salesy.
Yeah.
Like
Cool.
so, you know. And then one last thing, you're saying you should see the tech behind it. They have analytics for everything. So not only did they see the CrossFit trend come in and cater for it, but you know which pieces of CrossFit to offer, like boxing, Zumba, yoga, etc.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure it varies based on which area in Australia they're doing it. So that's brilliant. That again,
it is.
listen, that
It
don't
is.
exist here. That don't exist here. But you see, I never say it exists, but it's not under a franchise of one owner.
No.
You have to
no.
pay different memberships. So you don't get the benefit of paying one and going to all. So that's the downside.
Yeah.
Cool. Lovely. Folks, have a good night. Thank you for spending the hour with us. And again, you know you can find me and Lyndon on our DMs. Send us a message. Send us some feedback. We'd love to talk to you. If you want to be a guest, message us on the show. Message us. We'd love to have you on as a guest and just talk about sales, no matter what the topic might be for you. If we can help you out, it means you're helping out many others.
Yep.
All right? Have a
Take
good
care,
one.
guys. Peace.